Yeah, thank you. So this part of the project compiles the empirical basis for the interplay between forest management and ecosystem processes. And here we focus in particular on those related to biodiversity, climate change, and in particular climate extremes and also disturbances. Next slide, please. We are using measurements from long-term monitoring sites, where the ones where fluxes of carbon and nitrogen and their stocks, and also energy fluxes are measured continuously. They are of particular importance, and these are called the so-called flux tower sites. You see one example of a flux tower on this slide here. And among the flux tower sites on networks, the integrated carbon observation system, ICOS and FluxNet are particularly worth mentioning. And then we also scale up these local observations using remote sensing. Our attention is towards the impact, in particular the feedback between forest management and disturbances like climate extremes, fire, or pathogenic attacks on carbon and nitrogen stocks and fluxes, on biodiversity, and on biophysical properties like, for example, the forest structure and the local or microclimates within a canopy, but also the chemical composition of near-ground air and soil properties. Next slide, please. Concerning the biophysical situation of forests, we investigate the relation between forest structure, forest function, and the forest resilience, which is the ability to recover from disturbances, so recovering capacity. Forest structure is a quantitative concept in the project related to age, tree diameter, tree heights, vegetation indices, phenological status, tree species composition, diversity indices, habitat diversity, and so on. And with function, we refer to the microclimate within the forest, for example, the cooling effect of a canopy, the carbon and energy fluxes, light use efficiency, water use efficiency, and the response to extreme events like heat and or drought in combination or fire. And these properties are partially determined by site conditions like water availability, soil characteristics, elevation, and other variables. And we look at special situations like the occurrence of climate extremes, such as drought and heat, years like masting years for some tree stands, or legacy effects of former events like, for example, storms or also management interferences. Next slide, please. One example of these legacy effects is an experimental study conducted by our colleagues in Spain, where a site exposed to a fire a long time ago is investigated and measured for soil properties and others, and also an artificial drought experiment by rainfall exclusion. Other manipulation studies are also part of the project in different countries. Next slide, please. So the overall goal of this part of Climate Forest is to identify all, in quotation marks, climate effects and relevant processes. This is exactly what Adam mentioned already in the introduction. I brought this slide from another project partner, Jana Beck from the University of Helsinki. Besides the processes and fluxes already mentioned, like that of carbon, methane, nitrous oxides, heat and energy fluxes, the basic photosynthesis processes, and so on, we also focus on the creation of some larger molecules, like the biogenic volatile organic compounds, or BVOCs, and aerosols. They are summarized as the short-lived climate forces, SLCF. They have huge climate impact factors of several hundreds to thousands, where the carbon dioxide molecule has a factor of 1. On the other hand, their concentrations are usually small. They are also in part produced by the trees themselves, in part impacted on them externally. And the net cooling or warming effect is unclear at this moment. So therefore, they attain a special role in climate forest and will be further investigated.